host, Kemi Amin, and this is Who Are You? A podcast on purpose. Join me for conversations with people near and far about how they are finding their way, starting with one simple yet complex question. Who are you? Episode 5. For this session, I had the pleasure of speaking with creative leader Delanie West. Delanie is a hands-on creative with experience leading award-winning product development, design, creative content, packaging, and global sourcing teams. She formerly led the creative teams for A.W. Faber-Castell Creativity for Kids. Delanie has spearheaded innovation and development of many major craft and art categories. She has steadily moved the consumer product industry forward with her collaborative leadership and dynamic approach to innovation and creativity. She has also been influential in mentoring designers and developers new to their careers. Delanie is the founding creative director of Be Super Creative, a full-service design, marketing, and product development consultancy. She is also Chief Operating Officer at Healthy Roots Dolls and Partner and Chief Strategy Officer at Black Creatives. My conversation with Delanie gave me so much life. Hearing about her professional journey and creative work, her shift into entrepreneurship, and her personal endeavors, like completing a triathlon. Yes, y'all, a triathlon. Enjoy my conversation with Delanie West. So how have you been doing today?
So today, I'm doing a lot of listening because there's a lot happening. Mm-hmm. And I'm just, last week was me not knowing how to feel. Like I didn't know how to feel. And so this week I've just been engaging a little bit more conversation and doing a lot of listening because I'm a planner, I'm a developer. And so I want to do something. I want to affect change, but I don't know. I don't have anybody who's asked me for opinions. I don't have anything to offer because I'm still trying to understand, and my solution is not everybody's solution. So I've just been doing a lot of listening to the news, writing down statistics about, the new jobs report came out today. African Americans and Asians, there was an uptick of like 2% in that jobless number, while the rates for whites improved. And so I'm just looking at all the data, all the information, and just what does that mean for me as a Black woman? What does that mean for my folks?
Yeah, definitely. I actually went to your Twitter and saw that on May 9th you had tweeted, "Today is heavy. This week has been heavy. This month has been heavy. 2020, damn. When does our load get lighter?" So how are you coping with the events of late, with the killing of George Floyd, Breonna Taylor, and just the culmination of deaths and dying that African Americans have had to deal with for so many years?
Mm-hmm. So that, right, all that exacerbated by COVID, right? Because we've been sitting on COVID. I've been watching it in Asia with, through my business partner. So I had kind of been prepared for it. Didn't think it was going to hit us like this. So I was already in planning mode, right? So dealing with that, I got through that, But then we have week after week after week. And that same day, there was that woman in Central Park.
Yep.
So that hadn't happened. Like that had not happened at that point, right? So it got crazier after that tweet.
It did.
This was after Brother Ahmaud was, after that hit the news, because he had been killed, I think, in February. We were just finding out about it. And I just, I'm from the South.
Yeah.
I'm a runner. And I understand the culture. And I was just like, yo, I mean, when are we, Kobe Bryant, like when are we going to get a break? 2020. That was May 9th.
Yeah.
So for me, coping, I'm just trying to be real about the information. It's stressful. Trying connect with nature. I like to ride trails. I like to get out, talking to people, and just being real about the information. It's overwhelming. But we have always, as Black people, Black women, had to operate under this kind of stress. Like, this is what we have to do, right?
Yeah, no, right. I've been getting messages and talking to some of my white colleagues at work. And they're just like, I'm so stressed. I had to take a break. It was so much. And, sometimes I had to turn it around and say, you know what? Yeah, it is stressful. It is tiring. And this is what we deal with on a daily basis.
Mm-hmm.
Like,
Mm-hmm.
and it's just you're getting just a glimpse of it.
Mm-hmm.
Like, yeah, it can be a lot. And
Mm-hmm.
so you mentioned riding trails. Are you a biker?
So about 10 years ago, I got really involved and almost obsessed with running. And then if you're in the running community, one thing leads to another. And so my next goal was, okay, I want to do triathlon. So blend in the biking, and I fell in love with that, and the swimming. There's no swimming during quarantine. So the biking is, get you outdoors, or if you're a Pelotoner, get you indoors. But I love getting out on the trail. It's just so beautiful. It's just like you can decompress and think about nothing and keep going, keep pedaling. Good stress release too.
Yeah, I love that. I am getting a bike. I'm gonna be in the market for a bike soon. And because I felt like in quarantine, walking around, I felt like I don't know, maybe it was me projecting, but like a societal pressure to hurry up and get from point A to point B when I'm walking. And so a bike felt like a level of freedom that I think I need in this quarantine.
Yeah. And where are you based? You're in the
I'm in the Bay Area, Oakland, California.
Oh.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, that is my free. I have 4 bikes, and
wow,
those are my babies. Yeah.
What are the differences between the bikes?
One of them is a road bike, so only on concrete. The other one's a hybrid. I can take it on the trail. The other one's a triathlon bike, and then the other one is a fixed gear, which I bought because you have to work. There's no gears. You have to work a little harder. So I bought it as a training bike to build the muscles in my legs.
Ah, I see. Huh,
yeah.
Interesting. How was it like competing in a triathlon?
It was the best training. So for me, the benefit was training for it, because you're in some of the best shape you'll be in your life. I mean, you're doing something once a day, sometimes twice a day. The competing part of it, I mean, I love it. I had to learn to swim to do it, because, I'm part of that statistic of Black people that didn't know how to swim. So it took me 2 years to build up to having the confidence to do it. And I had to work with a tri coach. That's the part that I like least, because it's so chaotic when everyone gets in the water. It's kind of like every person for themselves. And you really do have to be careful, because if you're not a strong swimmer, you can struggle. But for the most part, I enjoy it. I need some pools to open up so I can get back into full training mode.
Yeah. So it sounds like you enjoyed the process more than the competition.
I actually did. I enjoyed having something to do every day, building up to this larger goal.
Yeah, I can see that. Yeah, I mean, it's definitely, I'm someone who struggles with competition anyways. Like, I think that that's an important part of life, but I think, to lead with that can be a little bit, lesson in futility. So yeah, it's about the process.
Yeah, I never wanted to win. I don't do these to win. I do these to finish.
Yeah, definitely. That's a great slogan. And then speaking of process, how has this quarantine influenced the work that you're doing now?
Oh my God, I took some notes on that one. That it's given me more time to create, because think about it. I work out of my home office anyway, but now you don't have you've got a captive audience. Everyone's in their homes. You have more access to people. I've been in rooms in terms of Zoom calls and invitations I had no business being in. I would have never gotten the invitation had not for COVID. So for me, I've been able to do some great networking, and without others having to, because I don't have to drive to get to a place. So I can be really productive all day long, because I just have to walk by the kitchen, pick up my coffee, and walk to my office and boom, I'm plugged in, and so is everybody else. So because there was that captive audience for that, 2 months, I got so much done. I still feel that momentum. So for me, and I don't feel bad saying this, it was like the shaming movement of you should be doing X during quarantine. I really was able to. This was like a dream for an introvert creative to have this time.
Okay. And you said introvert, so you're an introvert?
Yep, I am. I have to work to be extroverted because, I'm someone who, when I go through exchanges with, or even like this conversation, I have 5 of these today. After these conversations, I am going to be drained.
Yeah.
And when I'm in public with people, if I'm in a room full of people, it's kind of like everybody's an energy thief. And at the end of that event, I just want to come home, pull down the windows, and just recharge. So for me, I've had to train myself to be extroverted. I'm an introverted, extroverted introvert.
Yeah.
It's a struggle. It took me a good bit of years to figure out the formula.
Yeah, no, I hear you. I'm the same. And it's interesting because I think people tend to be surprised when you're in communications or marketing, branding, and you're an introvert. But one, there's a misconception that I think people who are in branding, marketing, communications should be having all the answers. But I really do think it's fundamental part of being a communicator is to be a good listener.
Oh my God. Yeah. Ask more questions, then you answer.
Yeah.
And be quiet, be silent, being the silent person in the room. Man, you should see the notes that I have just taken this morning in preparation for this conversation and preparation for all the meetings that I'm having. I'm just taking notes and learning,
yes.
And then I can develop a position of knowledge to be able to make the right decisions.
Definitely. And I know that, for me, some of my identity shows up in my work, and it may not be in a direct way. But I think just being empathetic, being in the position of an empathizer, listening, and learning just helps to build quality work. And I think there's this misconception that just people don't get it and think, well, we have this marketing problem. What's the answer? Give it to us. So there's a lot of training that has to go into that.
Yeah.
And so, but, still kind of a balance between, hearing what the audience you're serving and then your own identity. And so do you feel like as a Black marketing professional, branding professional, product development professional, that your identity as a Black woman impacts your work in any way?
I think, and I wasn't going to say this, but as you talk about empathy, being a Black woman in professional spaces, I know how to be on the end of everything that is negative about every exchange there is. And so I'm very thoughtful when I consider how I say things or how I invite people to problem solving, because I know how it feels not to be invited to the table, even when it's your table. I've been in those situations, so I think I bring empathy to the work, to the work. But I don't believe my identity as a Black woman is present in work because it's about the product or the client's vision. So it's always client brand out front. Do I bring my sensibilities and awareness? Absolutely. If it is a Black-centric brand, absolutely. I can get in and do my thing and make it pop that much more faster, less market research. But no, there's some projects that I've been affiliated with that you would have no idea that is my work.
Yeah, definitely. And I struggled with that earlier in my career. I think I felt like I needed to almost like, I guess, a fine artist is stamp an identity for myself. But again, really kind of leaning into that empathizer and coming in as a Black woman who is maybe more aware of the world than other people because of, our condition and what we've seen and what we've experienced for many of us. So yeah, I totally agree. Yeah. Can you talk a little bit about your journey? How did you go from you mentioned in my research, I saw that you mentioned that you were a graphic designer and then you went into product development and then branding marketing. Can you talk a little bit about that?
So I never said I want to be a graphic designer like that. I didn't even know anything about it. I went to college. I had a choice, FIT or Hampton University. I chose the Black experience. Glad that I did. And I was pursuing a degree in architecture. I just knew, that's what I used to say as a kid. I wanted to be an architect. That was my little girl dream. But I found out it was just so much math. I wasn't interested in that. Interested in the creating, building part of it. And I also have a music background, a lot of piano, violin. And so my mom was very musical. And so I fell in love with the Macintosh. So I will say it was less about a career in graphic design. It was more about finding this tool that operated like a piano or a violin or an Etch-a-Sketch. And I could execute my ideas with this device. And that did it for me. That was everything for me. And I was able to preserve majority of my credits, transfer to that program. And that was the very early times of people being trained in graphic design on the Macintosh. Like really, I might have been that year when they decided to stop doing, cut and paste. Hey, we're going to do it digital. So I had come into my industries with this tool that no one else really had out in that product development space. And so when I first got into the industry, I was an illustrator, a junior illustrator. I was hired to create illustrations for some product lines. But I immediately moved into more art direction because this business was based on interesting art from artists based in New York City. So I was always having a conversation with an artist, fine artists, illustrators, sketchers, people creating art by traditional means. It wasn't yet digital, and having them create custom art for these product forms. So I did, my first year, I did more art direction than anything. And when you're creating art for product forms, this company didn't call us graphic designers they just called us designers, but we were creating everything. It was coming into a business where I was the fourth creative, and it was kind of like a startup. So I just learned everything under the sun that had to do with creating a product. I just didn't have a degree in industrial design, but I probably should have, because I had to work with those same sensibilities.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I like in graphic design in that creative process is like both being a curator and a creator all at the same time, right? Mm-hmm. Yeah. And what exactly is be super creative?
So, and I'm going to attach it to another, I think we're going to talk about something else, but Be Super Creative is the brand name of my company, but also kind of an invitation call to action to everyone. It's kind of like, before everybody was like, live your best life, my invitation was be your most creative self all the time. It was the super creative. And I just thought that's too bold. That's too presumptuous. That's too, I don't want to come off like that. I want to be more invitational and more inviting. Potentially, I have visions for this goal to be a brand, and I want people to feel that they can be a part of it. So I had to make some changes, but I'm really comfortable with, how people feel about that name today.
Mm-hmm. And I love that idea of an invitation, and that's what I felt when I first saw the name.
Oh, good.
Definitely. And so, because I have, I think that I've come across people who were accountants or mathematicians, and they felt like they were not creative.
Oh, that's funny.
It is interesting, right? Everyone is creative.
Yeah.
And I work for a medical school, and some like people who are scientists, who are clinicians, they're some of the most creative people that I've met. And the very act of practicing a field in the sciences, there's creativity that needs to be there to be successful.
Yeah. It's not solely about being an artist or being a musician. It is about, your approach to solving problems and asking questions and, having an idea or a thought and making that into an actionable product or process or, concept. So it is not what everybody thinks it is. And it's always fun to help people discover that they have more creativity than they thought they did.
Right. Yeah, for sure. And so with Be Super Creative, you mentioned helping organizations bring their creative ideas to life. So can you talk about how do you start that process with the client?
My background is so broad. I have had the opportunity to work in all capacities of product brand development. And so I'm able to offer that same service to my clients. And so it depends on where that business or solopreneur is with their idea. There may be companies that want me to execute a nugget of a concept. There may be products that already exist and they need a line extension. There may be someone who has an idea for a platform and they just need a way to carry it out, branding, graphics, storyline. It depends on where they are. And so I always do an intake questionnaire to find out what it is that they want to accomplish. And point blank ask them, what it is, where do we want to be at the end of this working relationship? What can I help you be great at? So it's kind of really doing a deep dive into what they're looking to accomplish and then reading their likes, because a lot of people don't know how to communicate their creative ideas. Like they can't take what's here and sketch it. So it's more of a conversation, more of a questionnaire to kind of get their likes and dislikes. So I can kind of nail it in one shot instead of dancing around a thought or someone that can't execute what they want. But it depends. I've helped people who need to produce a product. I've helped people who needed help with importing some things from Asia. I've helped people who needed to launch a strategy for an award category. So I've done just, experiential projects, anything from a physical product to a brand experience. I've got, at least 20 plus years in doing a lot of those different things.
Yeah. How do you balance being able to produce a product of quality and the needs of your clients? Because sometimes when you're providing creative services, people, start to get very kind of confident about what they want, and like it may not be the right direction. Yeah. It may simply just be unattractive. How do you make that balance?
Well, I always try to base my advice and decisions on some type of data and research, or case example that I've had or someone in my ecosystem has had. So I like to present people with facts, but also, if need be, give them the opportunity to discover more on their own. So it's kind of like, this is what I'm going to do for you, but for you to make your best decision, you need to go check out X, Y, and Z. So invite them to do a bit of the research. Wow. And then when you have people that are going to make the worst decisions, I always say, look, if this were my business and budget, I would do X. But you're going to have to ultimately make the best decision for you. And that usually helps people, because when you talk to people in terms of dollars and they know that, okay, if I'm taking a hit for this as a project manager and I'm managing the budget and I'm saying do X, I can usually help them make the right decision by saying that.
Yeah, definitely. It's a journey working with clients. Yeah. But yeah, that's great. That's great advice, is to go to the data.
Yep.
And then give them some of empower them to do some of the work. Empathy, right?
Yep.
And you also have a project called Vitamin B20. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Vitamin B20, it's a space where you can get your daily dose of light and growth. That's the opening to our segments. But really, Vitamin B20 is a network. It is a project that was born out of really the first few days of COVID. Me and about 10 of my girlfriends, there's 6 active partners who are, that you can see out on the network creating content. But we knew we thought we knew what COVID meant. There was a lot of unknowns, but we knew that we weren't going to be able to be client facing. We weren't going to be able to be generating deal flow being out in public. We weren't going to be able to So me knowing, me knowing quite a bit of social, having managed, in real life in virtual ecosystems for, over, 10 years, and doing the virtual teams management for 20, I knew that we could still do what we needed to do and connect with potential, clients and just networks by being social. But we also said we have to do something, because as Black women, and we are all, well, most of us are Black. That's one non-Black woman. But we knew, and I knew, that any help, any assistance that would be given, because this is early in COVID, that we would be last in line for it, and we may not receive it, right?
Yeah.
So because this is our condition, we know. And so, out of, slave kitchens came, chitlins.
Yep.
And, any dish that you can name. So I felt that we needed to be creative and think about how we could help everyone in our ecosystem. So we built this platform, and each of us, we have Tuesdays at 3 with Gillian Alex. We have Water Walker Wednesdays with Brayley Evans. We have Be Super Creative Thursdays with me. We have Self-Care Saturdays with Tara Stinson, and we've got, she's gonna kill me, Simply Straight Organizing on Sundays with Roxy Barlow. And on those days, we feature, if we're not talking about the projects that we're working on, we are usually featuring some other woman or someone else in our ecosystem and giving them a platform to talk about their cause or their product. And I mean, we couldn't give money, we couldn't write checks, but we could highlight somebody else's business or brand to create, generate revenue or interest for them during that time. We used our talents, we used our downtime, we used all the time we had from COVID. And I think we pitched the idea to our partners, and we launched that network in under a week.
Wow.
And I think we've produced over 50 segments since we started, and oodles of content surrounding it. And so we look at this as an opportunity to continue telling this story, because COVID's not over. And the economic impact is definitely devastating. So we want to continue to do what we can to help.
Yeah, I mean, it's so important for entrepreneurs. I mean, the entrepreneurs have been hit so hard, no matter what sector, and people having to pivot so quickly,
right.
Literally in weeks. It's really been just very eye-opening, and like my respect for entrepreneurs and people who have an entrepreneurial spirit has like grown so much.
Mm-hmm.
From myself have been an entrepreneur in the past, and for those that I've worked with and that I've known. Just so much change so quickly. And so to be able to have a platform to amplify, especially women of color, women, what they're doing, the products that they're delivering, the value that they offer to the world, that's really important. Right. So yeah, thank you for that.
Yeah.
And speaking of entrepreneurship, I noticed that from your corporate to your entrepreneur endeavor of Be Super Creative, there was like a 1-year overlap, more or less.
No.
No, there was not. Okay.
So I have been maintaining my own brand for about 10 years. I realized, I've been doing all this brand building and equity creation for other companies, right? For other people that held, the purse strings, right? I may have had a small equity share, but for overall, it was not my, I didn't own that thing or that brand. So I remember working on some product development for the Martha Stewart brand. This is when she had just emerged from federal prison. Yeah. And I remember, I had launched an ideation studio called Ignition for the company that I worked for. And all we did is we came up with ideas, and we developed them, and they would flow into the different brands that we had under the umbrella. And I remember doing just a ton of work, and that product ended up in that line for Martha. And then that product was positioned under her brand, and she had done none of the development. Now that was okay. That was what it was. But then, I had been doing that for smaller artists. And when you do it for the smaller artist, you're kind of helping to develop together, right? You're raising their profile, you're doing it together. But it hit different when I was doing it for Martha.
Yeah.
And then in the back of my mind, I'm always thinking, damn, I want to do this in the capacity of B. Smith. So that I always say that I made that pivot. I said, this is a space that I can occupy. And B. Smith had been doing a little bit of this, but I said, why can't there be someone doing it? Someone that looks like me doing this in that capacity. So that's when I knew I needed to found my brand. And so I had begun taking clients underneath. It was at that time called Delanie West Design. But the problem becomes living this corporate life and then doing your own thing. It doesn't work. We had actually refused to sign an IP ownership agreement early on because they would have owned any idea that I had developed. So I didn't sign that. So I had to change it from Delanie West to Be Super Creative so that I could maintain that business and brand that business and it not be connected to me.
I see.
So yeah. I would have loved for it to be under my name, but it prevented me from doing both things.
Yeah. And what was that like, having to manage both corporate job, entrepreneurship endeavors?
It was tough because, the schedules that I kept had me doing a lot of international travel or just late nights at the office, and your capacity. I mean, as you know, days when you're doing creative and work and days when you're doing spreadsheet management and analytical stuff, when you're doing both, you come home and you're slammed. So it was hard for me. I hired freelancers to do a lot of it. I hired some assistants to do a lot of it, but it got to a point where actually, and this was a fatal mistake, fatal flaw. This is one of my life's learnings. I had taken the job at Faber-Castell, moved to Cleveland, still had my brand, came here, hired some fantastic designers. That brand, they were okay with me having my own company. I cleared that during the interview. But I had gotten so busy at Faber-Castell, I took my designers from Be Super Creative and hired them at Faber-Castell. It was the best thing to do because they were outstanding designers and I wanted to give them a full-time, paycheck and benefits. Great until fast forward almost 5 years, and then they reorganized, moved the core responsibilities back to Germany, and my position is eliminated. But at least I can say I've given 2 people some opportunity. But that for me, learning experience, fatal flaw. I should have continued to nurture and cultivate that business. And I think I would have been, because I kind of had to start fresh because I dedicated so much time to that company. Yeah. So that was my learning mistake. Big time.
Yeah. And so speaking of learning, what pattern, behavior, ideology did you have to shift when you went full time?
Oh my God, this is big. Not being afraid to step out from behind the brand, because in development, in marketing, the project is a star, right?
Yeah.
You can never really talk about it because it's all confidential. You can't talk about anything until the press release, right?
Yeah.
And then after that, you don't talk about it because you're engrossed in the next project. So I had to learn to be okay with talking about myself, my talent. I had to learn to market myself and not be afraid of it. That was the most difficult thing to do. I'm still learning. But that was the most difficult thing that I had to get over.
Yeah, that definitely. When I went out and started a stationery company, and I started my Instagram page, and
I love it. I love stationery. I started out in stationery. I love stationery and I love everything. I can't wait till your store opens back up.
Oh, well, thank you. I appreciate that. I was, but it was a challenge. It was a challenge because I was so used to being, it was a double thing where I I was behind this or what was behind me was this 20,000 person organization that I would have to market in my day job. And then when I would go to my company, it was just me. Yeah. It was oh, this is going to be a lot harder than, having a brand behind you. And then on top of that, yes, being someone who is definitely a behind the scenes sort of person, and then having to put myself in the forefront, I had to keep reminding myself that it's about the message, the vision, and the brand that I'm trying to push, and not about me. And if I didn't keep that, it would have been very difficult for me to continue. So I totally get that.
Yeah.
And so you talked about the importance of a pitch. To you, is a pitch and a purpose aligned? Are they related? Are they one and the same? What do you think about that?
No, it's the difference between making a sale and telling somebody your true intentions, night and day. Pitching is making an appeal to a potential, in business, it's making an appeal to a potential investor or customer. They don't have to like your personal politics. They might not like your personal politics, but they need to like the service that you're offering, right? And so I don't consider them the same, because my and I don't have my notes in front of me, but what I believe may not be what they believe, right? And I just want their business. A lot of cases, I just wanted to be able to serve them and do their project well. They don't have to align with, my core beliefs. And I think sometimes for me, I'm so vocal in some other parts of my life. I've got a whole other profile where I can kind of be more open in some of my beliefs about what's happening today. But I think that would be a turnoff to some clients if, because sometimes they don't match. But I have to be my corporate me, and this.
Oh, yeah.
We have to be our corporate selves. And I'm hoping with the conversations we're having in this last week that we can adjust some of that. And then we have to go home and code switch.
Yeah.
So my pitch is very different from some other things in my life. And, at the end of the day, I just want to bring the customer value and serve them value. And it has nothing to do with, maybe some of my other beliefs or some other, foundational beliefs for my company or, my life.
And what is your purpose?
Oh, goodness. It changes. I think it changes the older you get. You kind of, for me, it's like a lot of self-reflection, me 10 years ago. When I see a me 10 years ago, I go, wow, I want to step in and help this person. Or I see a me 20 years ago, I go, what can I do to help this person along in their life? Or how can I insert myself? How can I use my experience and sphere of knowledge to help someone in this situation? So I think, I come from a background of people who have always helped their communities. Both my parents were social workers, and they were creatives. So I think it's just a part of who I am. And now I just, I feel like I'm always willing and wanting to lend a hand and pull someone forward. That's what my purpose is today. It might evolve, and I'm sure that it will, but that's where I am today.
Got it. And what does your work say about you?
People say that it's very decisive and very direct, and it makes a very strong connection in terms of point. So my messaging and the output is consistent, and also usually consistent with who I am professionally, in terms of quality, value, consistency. I think my work, because I tend to align with projects and brands and people that I could be proud to represent and support. And so there's some consistency in the work that I do, because I do make those decisions in the clients that I serve.
You can find Delanie at besupercreative.com and delaniewest.com, as well as on social media at besupercreative. You can watch episodes of the Who Are You podcast on YouTube. I'll drop a link in the description. Subscribe, hit the notification button, and like the videos. You can also get early access to episodes by joining our mailing list at waypodcast.com. That's WAY podcast.com. unpacking.com. Until our next conversation, I'm your host, Kemi Amin.